all right? The other thing that I want to tell you before we get started here is that I've used the Lover's Path Tarot to get a general base kind of lay of the land of this relationship. So I've already pulled 6 cards for this relationship. The other thing that you should know is that there are only 26 inverted cards in this deck. So that's 1/3 of this deck, all right? I randomly pulled them, and of course I stuck them back in, shuffled, and then pulled the 6 cards. And of the 6 cards I pulled, only 1 came up inverted or in reverse, all right? And we'll take a look at those, and then we'll get some clarification with a different deck, okay? So kind of just overall, and then we'll look at each individual card. But overall, Aquarius, you're coming through as, I think, really trying to work on something new and trying to maybe start a new journey, start a new path. And I see this energy as being kind of real focused. So you came through as, well, let me come back to that, I'm sorry. Before I get ahead of myself, hang on a second. So I just want to kind of give you this overall, and then we'll kind of we'll start digging into some details. So you're coming through as really kind of wanting to work on something, right? So probably with the person that you have in mind, or the thing that you have in mind, because remember, this could apply to work as well. You're really looking to start something new, work on something new, and there is some ambition and some kind of willpower, driving, kind of what you want, all right? They are coming through kind of opposite of that. So the person or the thing that you're thinking about is coming through as the Princess of Staves in reverse. So the Princess of Wands or the Page of Wands in reverse, which is can be very indicative of uninspired energy, somebody that doesn't have motivation to pursue or to move forward, but that they're still kind of keeping a hopeful attitude. All right. And so again, I'm just kind of giving you the overall lay of the land. And then for the relationship, which are kind of like the cards that I pulled in the middle, you got two cards, right? So the relationship, the overall energy of the relationship came through as the 2 of Cups. So there's clearly some strong feelings here, some, probably actual love, emotional connection type of thing. And this card is really interesting. So this was the overall obstacle or challenge that came through. And in this deck, it's called Wisdom. In the traditional Rider-Waite, it's called the High Priestess card. What I'm guessing the overall obstacle or challenges, and we're definitely going to get clarification on this one, is there are some things that haven't necessarily been discussed. There are some things that either Aquarius, you are trying to work through and haven't been able to articulate to this person or this thing that you have in mind, or there are just things that haven't been discussed for whatever reason, and they're kind of kept kept internal. The other way to look at this is that perhaps this relationship is not in communication right now. The High Priestess card is a kind of a card of going internal. But it's interesting because the story in this deck doesn't really pertain to that, which I always find really interesting when I look at this card. This is like the story of the Arabian Nights story, where she reads him a story every night and he keeps her alive. And she's the only one who stays alive because typically he sleeps with them and then he kills them. And because she started reading the story to him and she would always leave him hanging, he would keep her alive for the next night to hear more of the story. And she kept that going for a long time. And then they did end up having a happily ever after in the end. But this was the overall obstacle or challenge. And so I don't know why I decided to tell you that, because that's not necessarily the message that I'm getting for you for this reading. But when I was looking at this card, I was really thinking about how it's interesting that the overall traditional meaning of the High Priestess and the story in this deck, for me, don't necessarily jive very well. So that actually could be part of the message, is that maybe there's some confusion. Maybe there's some confusion and misunderstanding happening in this relationship. So maybe that's kind of why I'm getting this kind of interesting mixed message with how to explain this card for this reading. All right, so your current energy came through as the Fool. The Fool is about new beginnings, trying something new, starting something new. Somebody who goes through life not necessarily thinking about consequences. Somebody who goes through life just doing what they want. They're doing what they want. And then what you want from the relationship or the thing that you're thinking about came out as this Eight of Pentacles, which is where the work piece came into it, right? So what you want from the relationship or this thing that you're thinking about, whatever that thing might be, you were actually trying to work on something, right? So you have this like free-spirited energy that you're in about this relationship and about this thing, but you also kind of want to see, you still want to work on something with it, whatever that means for you. There's still something that you want to work on. And you might be doing that on your own. There is an indication here, and we'll look for clarifiers, but there is an indication here that there may not be communication because we have the High Priestess here for the obstacle or the challenge. So there may not be communication at the moment. I jumped around. I haven't done that. This is like the second to the last reading of the 12 zodiacal signs that I've done, Aquarius, as a little digression here. And I've been kind of methodically going through them. And with your reading, for some reason, I'm like jumping all over the place. So I hope I'm not confusing you. But the way this kind of message is coming through, I'm hoping that the way that I'm explaining this will help you kind of piece together the base of this. And then we'll look at individual cards for clarification. What they want from the relationship. They came through as the Star. And this card is called Grace. So this is where I got that despite that they're coming through as basically the Page of Wands in reverse, so kind of uninspired and not very motivated, there's still a hopeful energy here. There's still like a desire for healing. There's still that still exists for this person or that thing. Okay? Even despite the fact that they might be in this uninspired type of energy. Okay? All right. So let's start digging in. I'm going to use the Tarot of the Hidden Realm to get some clarification. So I'm going to start with you, Aquarius. I'm going to see what it is that you're trying to work on, okay? What is Aquarius, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus? What are they working on relative to this relationship? What do they want from this relationship, please? What clarification can we give to Aquarius for this Eight of Coins and what they want from this relationship? All right, so this card that flipped out, we'll look at that in a minute. So you got the Magician, the Eight of Cups, and the Queen of Wands. Interesting, Aquarius. Interesting. So what do you want from this relationship? You want to cut your losses and you kind of want to do over. You want to try something different. You want to try, I'm getting do-over. I want a do-over. That could mean, starting a new life, right? You are in the Fool energy, right? That could be like just starting over, completely starting over, right? you might be looking just for like a fresh start and creating, the magician, creating a new life for yourself, cutting your losses, creating a new life for yourself. And then you came out as this Queen of Wands who, is very, very motivated. I always see the Queen of Wands as being very sexual, especially in this deck. So what you want from this relationship, maybe you want this reverse Princess of Wands, maybe you want her to be the Queen of Wands again. Maybe you want to see that inspired, passionate energy from this relationship again, right? Coming through as the Queen of Wands. The queens are water. And this is a fire, the wands are fire, right? So this is kind of like a passionate, emotional thing, that type of energy. So maybe that is what you want from this relationship or this thing. If it's a job or a business or something that you're starting to build or create, maybe you want that, You want to start utilizing the knowledge that you have and the resources that you have. And you're feeling passionate about it. You're definitely working on something. So for you, Aquarius, this reading could probably apply to a personal relationship and a work type of thing. All right, so you can apply that as is appropriate for you. But there's a piece here where there's a need to cut the losses and move on. Okay, so think about that and see where you might have opportunities to do that, so that you're not kind of carrying baggage with you. And the card that flipped out is in this deck is called the Blasted Beach. That's the Tower. So, you have quite a bit of transformative type of energy here. Kind of new beginnings with the Fool. We got the Manifesting Magician. And then, and then we have the Tower, which is like a total shakeup and a total, kind of talk about redo, talk about starting over. The Tower is like this is usually not something pleasant and usually not something fun. It's usually forced upon us in some way, or it happens to us without much warning, or usually without us wanting it. And then we have to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move on. So the Tower is challenging energy, but it's also like a shit ton of growth opportunity here too with the Tower. All right. So again, I'm getting that if this is a personal relationship, there may not be communication, that something may have happened to that. Right, we've got this. We're going to get clarification on this next. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get clarification for Aquarius, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus. On this Wisdom card, this High Priestess that represents the main obstacle or challenge of the relationship. What clarification can we give to Aquarius for this Wisdom card, please? All right, I have not had cards flipping out all over the place, but now you've had 3 flip out. So I'm keeping them, I haven't looked at them. I'm keeping them on the side. We'll look at them next, but what the F? What messages of clarification can we give to Aquarius, please? All right, the 5 of Cups, more like cutting up, with the 5 of Cups is tough because you've been through something and it's been emotionally painful for you, and now you have to figure out how to move on and move past it. Kind of more reinforcement what we talked about here with the 8 of Cups, It's, in this case, you're voluntarily choosing to do this. You're choosing to acknowledge what you have and what you don't have and move on, right? And then the 5 of Cups, a little bit of a harder energy, but still kind of a similar type of idea where you've had some things, you've lost some things, and now you have to figure out how to move forward without those things. All right. The Seven of Pentacles and the Nine of Wands. All right, so we talked about the Five of Cups, the Seven of Pentacles, and the Nine of Wands. And this was to clarify the challenge in the relationship. So I'm wondering, Aquarius, if you or the person or the thing that you're thinking about have been, I'm getting more reinvention with this card, you know, like you've been working on stuff, right? Maybe you both have been working on stuff and you're waiting to kind of see the fruits of your labor. And maybe for both of you, there's a level of reinvention here. With this Nine of Wands, like this phoenix rising from the ashes, you know? For you, I mean, you're definitely you're definitely heading towards this Nine of Wands because you have Tower energy and you have the Fool. So you're definitely moving toward some kind of new self-expression or new, and this is not an easy energy, right? Like rising from the ashes is not a feat that happens easily, or not. It's an accomplishment when it happens, right? Because you've been through some. If you get to the Nine of Wands, you've been through some shit. But there's an opportunity here for you to really start kind of putting in the work so that you can come out the other side with like a new version of yourself. I keep getting that, right? So we talked about this with the Magician and all that, you know, like that's coming out on your side. It's what you want from the relationship, but it also could apply to what you want for yourself, you know? Yeah, main obstacle or obstacle or challenge for this relationship may be that it's in a holding pattern and that you guys are both kind of working on your own individual things. You know, you've both been through some shit and you're both trying to work on what the next phase of your life is going to look like. Okay. And then the three cards that flipped out, and let's see what you get. So the first one that flipped out was the Page of Cups. Of course, the Six of Cups. Why wouldn't it be the Six of Cups? And the Knight of Wands. And this was to clarify that obstacle or challenge. So let me just start here. The overall energy of the relationship came out as the Two of Cups, remember? And then to clarify the obstacle or challenge, we got the Six of Cups. And when I see, especially when it's relationships and I see this type of challenging energy, and I'm still thinking this relationship is like not, if it is a relationship and not a work thing, you know, there isn't communication at the moment. If it's a work thing, it's something that hasn't developed yet. It's something maybe that you're working on and that you're thinking about. But if this is a personal relationship, because I'm getting that much more strongly, with the Two of Cups and the Six of Cups, every time I see that, you know, there's karmic energy here. This is karmic. And those are the most beautiful and the most challenging relationships, right? Because our karmic partners are the ones that where there's the most growth opportunity for us. They're the ones that kind of help teach us and help us grow. Okay. So that's definitely coming through strong here for this challenge or obstacle, because sometimes our karmic people, our karmic partners can be challenges for us, you know. There are, you know, the whole spectrum of karmic. You know, some of them are incredibly painful and challenging, and some of them less so, but still challenging in their own right, right? How do we grow otherwise unless we're challenged? The other two cards that flipped out for you is the Page of Cups and the Knight of Wands to clarify the obstacle. I'm wondering if these cards are suggesting that the energies aren't necessarily on the same page at the moment. Like one of you is coming through as the Page of Cups, and one of you is coming through as the Knight of Wands. So water and fire, right? Not necessarily the most compatible energies. One is a Page, one is a Knight. What I'm getting here for this challenge or obstacle, as a thought of consideration here for these cards that flipped out, was maybe the suggestion here is that since these are younger energies, right, the Page and the Knight are kind of younger energies, maybe there's a need. So if this is a relationship that's not in contact at the moment, maybe there's some growth that needs to happen before this relationship can resume, before, you know, communication can start again, right? We got communication here with the Page, and yeah. Right, so this is all clarifying this card of kind of going internal. And the Knight of Wands is not about that. So maybe one of you is kind of out in the world needing to do his or her own thing, and the other one of you is a little more on the internal side at the moment, right? So I'm getting some energies are not necessarily compatible at the moment.